Happy Saturday morning, coming live from my, brother's extra bedroom. I'm still mildly displaced, but we are in good spirits because there is a beautiful college football slate on our horizon. We're going to have a full slate here on WagerTalk's Last Call, starting off with Art DiCesare from the Westgate, Gianni the Greek, you guys know him from WagerTalk.com, and of course, Ross Benjamin, who is still sitting atop of that WagerTalk leaderboard in college football to answer all of your questions. This is a 100% participation-based show. We have kickoff in about 57 minutes, so if you have a question for any one of these guys here on College Football Saturday, drop it in your perspective chat, and we will try to get to it. Art, let's start with you, Westgate Superbook Risk Room Supervisor. Going to give us a look behind the counter.
Yeah, Kelly, good to be here. Obviously, sorry I missed last week, but this is a great slate. We got great games, so it'd be fun to talk about these games. Be interesting to see, too, what the listeners which games they want to talk about. Probably not going to always want to talk about the big games, too. It's not always about Oregon and Ohio State. Sometimes these lower level games see a lot of action as well.
Yeah, and we all know I could care less about any of these big games. Texas, Oklahoma next, Oregon, Ohio State, see you later. I want to get into the muck, the games where I want to know where you guys are lopsided, you've taken some big bets on, or maybe is going to be a big need come kickoff.
Yeah, let's just start early. We always like to start with the games that are just about to kick off. And right now, speaking to you 50 minutes before kickoff, our biggest need of the day is actually in the 9 a.m. slate. UAB and Army. Who would have thought? That is a terrible game, right? But it's been highly bet. We took a lot of sharp money on UAB at plus 27. We got to as low as 25. Then we saw the people come and clean the boards up. They took Army, continued to take Army. We've gotten back to that 27. But with all the Army money that we took, because we take one sharp bet and we move it, and then we take a flood of Army bets, we're going to really need UAB in the game. So we like when we have a position where we're needing our sharp side. So we feel good about that. But I don't think a lot of people would have thought Army and UAB.
No kidding. What an interesting game is going to be here, right? For the noon slate, 9 a.m. Pacific. There's a ton of early action that I have. So let's just rattle through some of these games that maybe nobody cares about. But let's start with North Carolina, Georgia Tech. This is a game that I had to hold my nose to get to the window on, and I'm hoping I'm not on the wrong side. We'll see if the Tar Heels can come motivated today.
Yeah, obviously early in the week we took a lot of North Carolina money, so it moved the number down. We were as high as 6 early in the week, opening numbers, saw some good sharp money there. And, like you said, we're sitting there at 3.5 now. A lot of money on the over, too. I know we don't talk a lot of totals, but that was as low as 57. We got to as high as 61. I believe we're back at 60.5 now. So you've seen a 3.5 point move to the over in that game.
Very interesting. If you guys have a question for Art, you guys can always drop it in the chat. We will try to get to you. We got about 10 minutes with my guy. He's busy. There are wait and book last minute bets there. Behind the counter there at the Westgate Superbook, Clervy wants to know, what's the outlook for USC Penn State? Now, this game's going to be interesting. What is it, a 3:30 Eastern kickoff? So we got a few hours. What are you anticipating here, Art?
This is a game that will write good money. Obviously, 2 name brands. We always get the USC people who want to come in and bet their Trojans. But early in the week, we saw USC money. I think when you can get USC sometimes as a home dog, that's usually a good spot. Penn State eventually will attract some public money. But I would say right now, the majority of the money is on USC.
So do you think you guys are going to need USC come kick, or are we going to be cheering for Drew Aller and James Franklin?
I think right now we'll probably need USC in the game. It's not that way right now, but like you said, that's the second wave of games, so that could obviously change. But I think once we get there, I think USC will be in need.
All right, good to hear. I do have a 5.5 in pocket. They almost made my parlay. Lots of moves went kind of haywire during Kelly and Murray, like literally in a 2-hour time block. All of a sudden, everything started plummeting, and I was like, all right, fine, I'm just going to add a fourth leg to my parlay over there at the Westgate Superbook. You can download the app and bet it if you are in the state of Nevada. John Murray so kindly boosted it to 55-1 for me. It almost worked out for us a couple weeks ago when he did that. Art, give me kind of some of your early, let's say before 6 p.m. Eastern, kind of big needs early on, and then we'll get to some of those fun night games.
Sure, let's just go down a couple more early games. We're going to need Ball State against Kent State. Sharps came in, took 6.5 with Kent State, all the way down to 3.5 on that game. Ball State going to be a need. Wisconsin Rutgers, very interesting. Really good two-way. And then we had a sharp player come and take Rutgers at their low point yesterday, -1.5. We're back to 2.5 on that game. So that was sharp action. Washington, Iowa has seen groups on both sides. Taking 3 with Washington, laying 2.5 with Iowa. That's a game where we just hope it doesn't land 3, so the 2.5's cash and the 3's get their money back. If it avoids 3, we're good in that spot. We get to the next round of games. Interesting, Purdue. Purdue has been a sharp side all week. They've taken a lot of money at 23.5, 23, 22.5. We were as low as 21.5, so a little bit of Illinois money trickle back up. Notre Dame, Stanford under money. That was as high as 46.5, down to 45, trickled back up to 45.5. Wyoming came sharp money at +2. Wyoming now a slight favorite, -1. We get to the next slate. NC State sharp money, +3.5 against Syracuse. So, that's one of those spots where NC State hasn't been good. Syracuse has been good, even though they lost to UNLV, but sharp money is on NC State there. Sharp money also on Rice, +6 against UTSA. We'll actually need UTSA in the game. And then over money in the Air Force game, it was 54 all the way up to 56.5. We'll need under in the game.
Did you guys see sharp money on FAU? That was the game I was discussing. I took 6.5 here with one of the locals in Illinois, and I looked at the market and it was like starting to get bet down, but they had a stale number. I was like, all right, let me bet this now. And then all of a sudden I get done filming and it was 4.5 and starting to see 4s pop up on the WagerTalk odds screen. Was that just one sharp group? What kind of happened there?
That's a great call, Kelly. I actually did have that written down. Terrific on your part. FAU did take sharp money at 6.5. You're right. We got to as low as 4.5. And then once again, you see the people come in and, people are very, I mean, if you sit there at 4.5 and the board's 5 or you're 4, you get plenty of people come in and just bet the other side. Like we said, the board cleaners who are going to come in and take the half point or a point. So it's trickled back up. But the initial sharp money, and a guy that we really respect who has been really good, and we've been booking to his action all year in college football, is on FAU, and that's the initial move, and that's why we power moved it the way we did.
Let's talk about some of the games in the late slate, a game that I didn't think anybody would be interested in a couple of weeks ago, but Kentucky beats Ole Miss, Vanderbilt beats Alabama, and all of a sudden I'm starting to wonder if I'm not on the square dog here. I have the 13.5 with Vanderbilt. I know a lot of people are expecting a letdown spot from them, but I'm also now wondering if everybody is on them thinking that they're going to beat Kentucky.
Well, I think, first of all, you got a great number at 13.5, and the guy who I'm talking about came in last night and bet Vanderbilt at 13, so you even got a better number than him. We moved all the way to 11.5. Once again, you start to see it trickle back up. But I think the spot with a low total, a total 44, 45, in that range, and you're almost getting 2 touchdowns, it feels like a good spot. Kentucky has no offense. I get it. Vanderbilt's probably going to be really high off the win against Alabama, but I don't know. Maybe Vanderbilt's pretty good. They're kind of feisty, and you're getting 2 touchdowns in a low total game.
Yep, that's exactly what my handicap was. Also, USC's kind of feeling themselves. Here's another game that I did bet. James Walmer. I have a terrible number. I have Rutgers -2.5. I bet this one on Tuesday. Your thoughts on the Badgers-Rutgers game?
Yeah, I had mentioned that earlier. That's a game that's kind of seen really good two-way action, and we did reach a really low point last night of Rutgers -1.5. Sharp Group came in, bet that back up to 2.5. So I would say public's more on Wisconsin in the game, and obviously the Sharps got to the low point of the 1.5 and laid that and went back up. But it's pretty good two-way action on that game.
All right, good stuff. If you guys have a question for Art, drop it in the chat. We got about 3 more minutes with him. Any thoughts on Iowa, Washington? You had mentioned the split action here. I went to lay 2.5 with Iowa. I log in. I started looking through different apps in Illinois, and I'm going, what the hell happened to all the 2.5s? And I stayed away at 3. I do like the Iowa side, but I have a feeling you guys might get middled in this one. I don't trust this Iowa offense to be able to win by a touchdown or more here.
And I'm with you, Kelly, and I feel the same way. If it's 2.5, I would lay it with Iowa all day. Obviously, Washington's coming off a big win. Now they got to go on the road and play that tough defense. But you're right. If that game lands 3, it's bad for us because all the 2.5s cash with Iowa, and then all the Washington money just gets put back in the pool, and we get killed on the game. So we obviously want the game to be a little bit more than that. We'll be pulling for Iowa in the game, it looks like. But like I said, really good two-way action on the game.
Awesome. Anything else you have to report here? Oh, B Daddy wants to know, of course, the big marquee game tonight, Ohio State versus Oregon. Where is the money on this game?
This is an interesting game. The funny thing, the move in this game has been the total. You know, we opened the total 51, and it's gone all the way to 54. We were sitting 3.5 for a while. There was a little bit of Oregon money that came in, and now we've started to see some Ohio State -3s come in today. A lot of people, especially public players, who are going to come in and bet the game are going to take Oregon on the money line. And don't forget, this is a game of the year, was Ohio State -1. So obviously Ohio State's power rating has gone up. Oregon's has dropped a little bit. Obviously Oregon's at home. I like Ohio State in the game. I would lay the 3, but it should be a fun game.
A lot of people give me grief for talking about those either games of the year or the summer lines, as some people like to call them, or when you guys have them out in August. Let's talk about K-State because it is one of the late night specials here in the Big 12. I used to call it Pac-12 After Dark. Now it's Big 12 After Dark. And I try to explain to people, guys, I made K-State -9.5 in July. We saw lots of different numbers floating around the stratosphere that is sports gambling throughout the last few weeks. Colorado beats UFC, and all of a sudden this line drops to 4.5. Now we're starting to see 3s. I have a 3.5 I bet with K-State yesterday. I didn't think we'd see a 3. And sure enough, this morning I woke up and there are 3s available. Talk to me about the action on K-State, Colorado before I let you go.
Yeah, this is obviously a late game, so this will get a lot of eyeballs. This will be after the Oregon game. Kel, this has been one-way traffic. It's been nothing but Colorado. I mean, we saw Colorado money at 5.5, 4.5, and we're sitting at 3 right now. It's unbelievable. I'm with you. I didn't think we would have ever gotten a 3 on this game. But normally Colorado is the public side. The kids like coming in and betting Colorado. But it was sharp money, which I was surprised that the sharps are actually back in Colorado when they are normally more apt to go against Colorado. Interesting. I think obviously at this point you're getting the low point on K-State. So if you like K-State, bet it now because it probably, with this game being so late in the day, that number is going to probably trickle back up.
Yeah, I can see that. You think you're going to get late K-State money or public money coming in on the Wildcats?
Yeah, I just think too when you sit at 3 and you get to a point there. I mean, you know too, if people got certain numbers, they can look for middles. If they took 6, they'll lay 3. There's a lot of different scenarios where people could do that. So, but I do think I don't even know if it will be public money on K-State because, like I said, the public normally likes to bet Colorado. But I do think that there will be a sharp or two that just sees this is too low of a number and I can't pass it up at 3.
42-21 final. That is what I text my Colorado brother-in-law this morning. I've seen this K-State team enough. I know exactly what we're going to see tonight. Sorry, Shadur. 2 interceptions for you, my friend. Art DiCesare at ArtDice21. Always hanging out with us here on Saturday mornings, bright and early from the Westgate Superbook. Make sure you guys are giving him a follow. You can also check him out on WagerTalk today with Teddy and the Prez. Art, appreciate you always giving us a look behind the counter. Well, for a guy who's going to give us a look behind the computer screen, and I love to see that, whether it's some sharp money coming in, some guys that he's laying some points for, taking some points with, or getting some behind the scenes of the local accounts. The Greek Gambler VR is going to give us some of that college football gold. He comes in every single Wednesday on the college football edition to bet on it. Now we're going to see if those two things coincide.
You look absolutely stunning today, Kelly. Your makeup and hair, on point, on point.
Thanks, VR. I'm gonna spare a bedroom. I've been sharing a bathroom with a 5-year-old all week, and I think it's because the sunlight is coming through and through the blinds right now in the extra bedroom.
It looks great. It looks great. Like you're ready to go out for Friday night. It looks amazing. You look great. So now
Well,
for the
thank you.
college football action. Here's what I did for this week. I separated it into different groups and narrowed down exactly the legit moves, meaning where I got no resistance from them, no resistance from other groups, or none from other guys that move like I do that we share information from. So far, here's what we got. Let me get you the team totals and the first half stuff that is always really sharp. These are first half team totals. 170 Rutgers under 10.5 up to minus 150. And then 207 Memphis under 17.5 up to minus 135. Those are first half team totals. Those are difficult. Not too many books offer those. These guys crush it. I don't release them as premium plays to subscribers because I know not everyone could get down, and I know the limits are low. But full team totals, they can. And these I released as premium plays. 2 team totals. Game 132, NC State under 24.5. It's good to minus 125. And then game 136, Bowling Green under 24.5. Good to minus 130. So those are 2 team totals for the full game. Now some first half totals. These have done well also. Stanford, Notre Dame. The game got bet under, but the first half got bet under even stronger. Got bet under 24.5 and got bet under 24. And then Purdue, Illinois also got bet under 26.5 in the first half. Those legit sharp plays. Now I'm going to get to the sides that we've been able to confirm. Start with Nevada, 202. Multiple groups got down on Nevada from plus 4.5 all the way down to plus 3.5. Game 200, Iowa, money line. Game 180, Fresno State, plus 3.5 and 4. 162, UNC, plus 4.5. 196, UCLA, plus 4. And 126, Georgia Southern, plus 1. That's one particular group's 6 top plays. Here's a second group. 128, Pittsburgh, minus 3. 139, Louisville, minus 7. They laid juice to get those key numbers. 177, Arizona, plus 3. 179, Washington, plus 3. 126, Georgia Southern, pick 'em. Notice Georgia Southern, multiple groups hitting that Georgia Southern side. 124, West Virginia, plus 3. 188, LSU, plus 3.5. 196, UCLA, plus 4.5. There it is again, UCLA getting hit by multiple groups. Pay attention to that. Finally, the last group. First halves, 11:52, Central Florida, minus 2. 11:27, Cal, plus 2.5. And then full game, 203, Penn State, down at minus 3.5. They're laying the 3.5. And then Vanderbilt, Kentucky, under 46. Couple more sharp plays that I got from other guys. I didn't bet these for my groups, but they did, and they confirmed no buyback. 192, Wyoming, on the money line and laid the points after taking them at plus 1, I think. 132, NC State, plus 3. 160, Rice, plus 6. Vandy at 2 touchdowns, plus 14. And FAU at plus 6. FAU plus 6. Those came from other groups that are legit. These are legit plays, not too much resistance. Or if it was the resistance side, it was the legit side. Because remember, a lot of manipulation happens earlier in the week. So that's pretty much, I know it seems like a lot of volume, but I urge most of you guys to do what I do. Most of you follow and handicap, follow line movements, learning how to become winning plus EV bettors. Narrow down the sides and totals you like most, and then you have your sheet to look at. As sharp stuff comes in, if it confirms with you, you know to fire. You know to even make it a bigger bet. If it's opposite of you, maybe you need to take a step back, dig a little deeper. Did you overlook something? So that's how I do it, because I'm not going to be able to bet everything that they're giving me, but I narrow down my strongest stuff. When it lands on it, I get to fire more and release those as premium plays. So this is to help you narrow down your strongest positions to either follow or fade. You don't have to bet everything. You don't have to piggyback everything. Simply bet the best numbers. You'll do fine. Any questions? Go.
Yeah, really quickly, I have some questions about some of the steam that you give out, right? There's thresholds. Art and I spoke about how I liked Iowa minus 2.5. I went to bet it. It was 3. I said, all right, I don't love Iowa that much. I'll just stay away. At what point in time, we know NFL, there's several key numbers that we want to really hone in on. At what point in time in college football do you make those determining factors on when a line has moved too much or hasn't, is a half point here or there enough to keep you off like it was for me with Iowa? Or is it per game basis necessarily?
I love it. That's the absolute best question because I get it asked all the time. What do I do? Your number's not available anymore. And I have to answer that same question because I'm getting plays. And if I can't find the number, what do I do? It's a half point off. Do I bet it or it's a point off? Here's what I've learned that's done the best for me. I simply flip the point spread to a money line. Okay. I have a chart up where I absolutely have the exact point spread to the money line. So I'm just picking an arbitrary number. We know -6 is, let's say, -220, 240. Okay. So let's say we know it's -240. So I know my break even at -6, which is -240, would be 70.5%, 71%. So what I'm looking at is what's the move to? How much has that implied win probability moved? Because a lot of times, like, for example, a move from -125, where the break even is 55.5%, to 150 is huge. That's only 25 cents, but the implied win probability has moved 3.5%. A lot of the value would be gone. But when you move from -200 to -250, or -220 to -250, the implied win probability may move 1.5%, 2%. Or when you go from -300 all the way to 400, it's only changed 5%, and that's a whole 100 as opposed to only 25 cents. So for me, that's what I do. I flip the point spread into a money line, and then I see how much has the implied win probability moved. If it's more than 3%, there's no way I'm touching it because I know these guys don't have that big of an edge. Even if they have a 10% edge, they have to overcome the 4.5%, which is the hold, which is the VIG. And nobody has a 10% edge. So I figure after the 4.5% hold, if they have a 2.5%, 3% edge, they're going to fire. Once that's gone, it's gone. I can no longer bet it. So that I don't want to confuse you, but that's what you're looking for. How much has it changed based on the implied win probability? Has it been enough percentage where you just don't see that it's going, like it can't be there anymore? If the implied win probability moves 5% or greater, you got to be able to conclude, unless there's injuries, weather, something to warrant that type of move, it's more times than not justified, not warranted. Or if it is, it's just too late to bet it. Once that line moves that much. So that's the best way I can explain it, Kel, is that just flip that point spread to a money line and then check how much has the implied win probability moved. More than 3 percentage points, I think you want to lay off it. I don't think there'll be much EV there left.
Very, very good information from the Greek _gambler on all your social media channels. T Loading wants to know about the Rutgers Wisconsin game. VR, you mentioned bad numbers, good numbers. I laid 2.5 with Rutgers. Now it would have made more sense for me to wait and have bet the money line. Your thoughts on this one? Anything you're seeing on the screen there or behind that computer screen?
I'm seeing one-sided public money on Rutgers. Like, here's what I mean by that. When I look into the accounts that I have access to, a 2-book from back in Philly that have a long sheet, and 99 out of 100 of their players are square players. The ones that are bots, they have them labeled. So to make a long story short, when I see that they've got the majority of tickets on Rutgers, that doesn't tell me much because I'm not getting 11 to 10, so I can't just fade it and make money. But when I see that the majority of those Rutgers tickets were actually bet at -2.5, and the line now is even lower than that, it tells me that that was very square action, that they were willing to lay a worse number than it is now, and that's where the majority of that Rutgers money came in. So now if it's even less, if the book knows that they're getting 8 out of 10 Rutgers at -2.5, and they're now going to give it to you at -1.5, that shouldn't change from the public. Even though the wise guys may come in opposite, the public narrative shouldn't change. If the majority of public likes Rutgers on Wednesday, they're probably going to like them on Saturday. Like if the early money from the public is on Rutgers, the late money is probably going to be on Rutgers too. So if the book is now discounting them to you, even though they know they've already taken so much at -2.5, to me, that's a telling sign. Doesn't mean Rutgers isn't going to cover, but it tells me there's a lot of resistance. There's some short money on Wisconsin that makes the books comfortable enough to take Rutgers money at even a worse number. But again, Wisconsin being more of a public team, that may be offset it a little bit. But yeah, for me, it would be Wisconsin or pass in this spot.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
feel exactly confident having a 2.5 in pocket with Rutgers. Anything else that looks very square or public before I let you go?
Yeah, that's what I'm pulling right now. Thank you for asking that. It's refresh. Here's one-sided. Let me run
Okay,
down
go
and tell you
ahead.
the most one-sided square bets where we're willing to take bad numbers. Kentucky. They're laying Kentucky. The majority of bets on Kentucky came in at 13.5. That's what I look at. And right now you could lay 12. And this guy was booking them at what's it called? 12 and at 13.5. Clemson. Laying Clemson at minus 22, 21.5. Now it's 20. So that none of that is sharp. Clemson getting one-sided action. Dropped down to Arizona. They were taking Arizona on the money line, as they don't even need points with Arizona. Most Arizona's money line, and then even taking 2.5 when there's 3s out there. So yeah, that's definitely square. Alabama. They'll lay anything with Alabama now. Even after
They will.
off that bounce back, anything today, they're going to lay anything with Alabama to bounce back. And USC, here's USC. USC did get respect, meaning you were getting 5.5 earlier in the week, 4.5 and 4. But I can tell you, this is a later afternoon game. If this was a night game, this would definitely end up being the most risk for the books, because at least both square sheets, Kel, I swear to you, it's double the amount of money of the next square's bet. So if the next square side is getting like tickets of 7-1 in their favor, 8-1, this one's like 9.5. Almost everything, almost completely is. In fact, I don't see anything on Penn State. I see it's crazy. Even the parlays are all Penn State. USC. The teasers are all USC. Well, that makes sense. You shouldn't tease college football, but at least they're
No,
doing
you should not. But we know they love to tease them some college football. It does not matter.
So yeah, USC, Kel, USC, Penn State, and I said the guys I know, the sharp guys, they're picking off. They're trying to get that 3. They're hoping to get that 3 behind the scenes. So
go to get a medal off screen. Okay, perfect. VR, 90 seconds before I let you go and bring in Ross Benjamin. Give me your promotion, what you got over at WagerTalk.com, and when is the next episode of the Steam Room?
Oh, yeah. I'm unloading today. College football and MMA, in UFC, number 1 in profit, number 1 in ROI, up over 140 plus units. It's just been that kind of year. So you want to jump on for Saturday and take Calgary too. Calgary Stampede on the money line. We bet them pretty heavily in Canadian football. You may want to take a look at that. And tomorrow I'll be back here for Last Call in NFL. I'll have real good information for you, especially on those Wong teasers. And I'll explain why I bet them so late in the week and why, if you've been doing it like I've urged since week 2, you're now 17-6 on those Wong teasers, 17-6. So that's a really good number. And I have another 5% in NFL tomorrow. I think I'm going for my 5th straight. So it's a good time to be involved. And thanks for having me on, Kel.
Absolutely. My account can prove that it's best to wait for those teasers until Sunday morning with us on Last Call, because the ones I bet early in the week do not seem to win. The ones we're betting late have been very profitable. So thank you to VR for that. Make sure you guys are giving a follow on TikTok, X, and of course, Instagram at Greek_gambler. All right, the guy that's still sitting on top here at WagerTalk.com, college football hitting 60% since December of 2022, 104-69. He is ranked number 1 at WagerTalk. He finished number 1 last year at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, 16-5 his last 4 college football Saturdays. And he has a 5% best bet today, up as well as some 4%, 10-0 on those 4%. Actually, that is a 4%, but Ross used the $ instead of the 4, and I did not carry that over. Let's bring in Ross Benjamin to talk some college football.
Hey, Kelly, how are you?
Doing really well. We had a great Saturday with you last week, you and I, and the games we agreed on went 3-0. So kudos to us. I hope we agree on some more. If you guys have a question for Ross about any game on the board, feel free to send it over and we will try to get it answered between one or the 2 of us. But Ross, let's start off early. Let's hit on a couple of games that I bet on. I love, again, to see when we agree. VR kind of made me realize that Rutgers was probably pretty square, even though I bet it early in the week for a unit. But let's talk on some of these other early morning games, most notably North Carolina, Georgia Tech.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia Tech 0-2 on the road this year, but I just can't get myself to take North Carolina plus the points, even though I think that might be the play today. You're looking at North Carolina over the last 3 weeks. They blow a 20-0 lead in the second half against Duke. They get blown out by James Madison at home, giving up 70 points in that contest. And then last week, losing by 10 again to Pitt on their home field. I think if you're going to play this game, you might lean toward the points because I just think the obvious play is Georgia Tech here. And again, the Yellow Jackets have failed in both of their road games this year. So not a game I'm willing to use or take money out of my pocket for, but just solely an opinion.
Yeah, every once in a while, I like to get down in the muck and get a little dirty on some of these disgusting bets. That's why that's why I took a 4 with Marco's NC State earlier in the week. 0-6 against the spread.
Down to 2 now.
Yeah,
NC State down to 2.
I don't have my normal CLV trophy behind me, but if I did, that is going to be one for the ages. Robert Benacasa wants to know about Pitt, California. This is a game I have not talked about all week long. Cal off that really ugly loss. That one hurt me a lot. Let's see if I can get a current line here on the WagerTalk odds screen. I apologize, guys. I don't have my normal setup for obvious reasons. This game's at 2:30. Pitt is now ranked in the top 25 and is a 3.5-point favorite. 50.5, Ross. As I mentioned, Cal, that was a dagger. I went to bed last week, 35-10. Thought, all right, we got Cal across the finish line, and we didn't. And it was really painful.
Yeah.
And how do they pick up the pieces now to go play this Pittsburgh team across the country?
It'll be very tough. You're looking at, you mentioned the score that when you went to bed, and it was 38-18 in the fourth quarter with less than 11 minutes to play, and they lose the game 39-38. I don't like siding with teams that come off excruciating losses like that, where they were on the verge of a huge upset. I mean, the layman might say, well, that gives them a lot of confidence. It was a morale win, but there's no such thing, in my opinion, especially when it comes to sports betting. And you touched upon it, and kudos to you. Now they have to go across 3 time zones to take on a Pitt team that's undefeated and ranked and coming off a win at North Carolina last week. The only thing that scares me with Pitt is their defense has been a little bit vulnerable, but man, oh man, could they score? And I just think it's a tough spot to back California in this particular instance. And I would have a lean toward Pittsburgh, late at 3.5 at home against California.
All right, guys, if you have a question for Ross, please drop it in your perspective chat. We will try to get to it. We got about 10 minutes left here in the show because I need a little bit of time to put in some of these last minute, we'll call it fade the public sides. Oh, here's another one from Titan CT, Ross. Thoughts on Arizona BYU? This was a game that I ultimately had Arizona written down on my long list, and I said, you know what? I got to not fade BYU. A couple weeks ago, I laid 3. My good friend CT and I laid 3 with Baylor, and I was a little sick to my stomach after that when I said, all right, right now is not the time for me to be fading BYU. Is today the day to be fading BYU?
I like the total in this game. It's 49.5. This Arizona team has gone under the total in 4 consecutive games, and the average total in those 4 games was 50.8, and the combined average score was 38.3 points per game. Arizona, if you recall, Kelly, got off to a great start to the season offensively, and then they they demoted their offensive play caller, Dino Babers, since that time, and it certainly hasn't worked out, even though they made that change. Since the start of last season, this is an Arizona team that's played 7-1 to the under as a dog and 6-0 to the under if they're on the road before Game 7 as a dog. So BYU, coming off an over in their previous game, they haven't played back-to-back overs early this season. 2-0 to the under following an over. I like to look at those types of algorithms when it comes to totals. In those 2 games averaged just 40 points per game, 3 Big 12 games this year for BYU, and they're averaging just 315.3 yards of total offense while only allowing 330 yards total defense. So I like this under. BYU, Arizona, under the total of 49.5.
All right, Ross Benjamin here with us on Wager Talk's Last Call at Ross Benjamin 1 on Twitter. He's also put out some really good content over on Instagram, so make sure you guys are giving him a follow there. All right, here we go. Chevy Bra wants to know UAB plus 17 over Army. We heard, I think it might even be higher now. I apologize, I don't have the
It's 27.
27. Okay, that's what I thought. I'm like, I'm pretty sure we just talked about this game with Art DiCesare. Little typos, we all have them. It's okay, Chevy Bra. Ross, talk to me. They said it's going to be a big need this morning there over at the Westgate.
Yeah, well, I foresaw that, and I can't step in front of Army the way they're playing right now, and I certainly can't side with UAB, especially coming off a game they gave up, I believe, 70 points in that area. They got blown out by Navy the week before. Trent Dilfer, their head coach, is on the hot seat. They're having trouble drawing fans as they're revolting against the hire of Trent Dilfer, and a lot of down things going on for UAB. But having said that, it's certainly a large number for an Army team to cover. And if you think about if this game was played early in the year, it would be nowhere near this number. So I think, like Art mentioned, a lot of public money is going to go on Army, more so because of the 5-0 record for Army and the ineptness of UAB right now.
Yeah, UAB is not very good, but I don't know if I can get to the window, even though it is going to be a big need for the sports books. Ross, anything that you want to touch on, any games that nearly missed your card? We're waiting for some questions from the audience to come in, and I'll let Ross have the floor here for a few minutes.
Yeah, Ohio State and Oregon, I do have a winning total on, so I'm not going to touch on that game, but I will touch on the Ole Miss and LSU game. Ole Miss, 3.5-point favorite in this spot on the road. Now, LSU is not used to being a home underdog, and when they have, they've done pretty well under Brian Kelly in that situation. However, this Ole Miss team, the difference in this game, Kelly, as I see it, you have two very explosive offensive teams, but the difference is going to be Ole Miss's defense is far superior to that of LSU's. You're looking at an Ole Miss team that's allowing just 7.5 points per game, a little over 300 yards per game. Ole Miss this year, despite playing a very soft non-conference schedule, they did what they had to do. They're outscoring opponents this year, even with one loss to Kentucky, by 36.5 points per game and outgaining them by over 300 yards per game. And as good as LSU is as a home underdog, and as good as they've been on their home field, and then you have the aura of having to play at Baton Rouge on a Saturday night. Is there anything more college football than the SEC game on a Saturday night in Baton Rouge? Having said that,
you're right.
Yeah, having said that, though, since 2020, Ole Miss is an away favorite of -2 or greater. How about 8-0-1 against the spread? I don't think a lot of people realize that. Winning by a total of 21.5 points per game. LSU is 4-0 since their opening loss to USC. I just think Ole Miss's defense. Here's another thing, Kelly, I look at a little bit, is common opponents. LSU struggled and needed a furious comeback to beat South Carolina on the road. Ole Miss played South Carolina on the road last week, and it was a lopsided game. They won that game 27-3 and dominated in every facet of the game. I'll lay the 3.5 points with Ole Miss on the road at LSU.
All right. If you guys have a question for Ross, we've got about 4 minutes left here on the show. Right now, Ross is number one currently at WagerTalk and has been since 2022 in college football, 104.69. That is 60%. His return on investment is almost $9,000. Finished again number one in college football last year at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, 16-5 his last 4 college football Saturdays. And today he has a 4% best bet up on WagerTalk.com, WT.buzz/RB. Any more questions from the chat? We got one from Lemon Cake. Stanford is plus 22 on the road at Notre Dame. Do you think that's a hefty number for Notre Dame to cover at home?
Yeah, it is. But the way Stanford looked the last 2 weeks, since that upset win at Syracuse, they look like the Stanford team we've been watching over the last couple seasons. So not a game that I'm willing to endeavor in. And, Notre Dame, yes, that seems like a high number because Notre Dame isn't exactly explosive offensively, but they're very good defensively. And that's a game that probably is going to come down to the final couple moments in terms of who covers the game. Unequivocally, I think Notre Dame wins the game, but I think ultimately what will happen in this game is Stanford will wear down in the second half because Notre Dame's defense is so good. Notre Dame with a very good running game as well. I have a very small lean toward laying the points with Notre Dame, but not a game I'm willing to take money out of my own pocket to bet.
All right, about 90 seconds left here in the show. If anybody has any more questions, you guys can drop them in the chat. If not, I've got some work to do. I know Ross wants to enjoy his college football viewing.
I got a small bet today on the Iowa State-West Virginia game. I very rarely do this, but a first half bet. And I didn't give this out to my clients, but if you're watching, I just made this bet actually. Since last year, Iowa State 3-0 to the under in the first half whenever the line is between +3 and -3. Iowa State 5-0 this year, and their average combined first half score in their 5 games, only 19.4 points per game scored in the first half. As you well know, Kelly, Iowa State's defense has been very good this year. They are coming off a 43-21 home win over Baylor. West Virginia off a 38-14 road win at Oklahoma State. And a nice angle, first half angle in college football on this one. Anytime you have a college football game with a first half total of between 25 and 28, and the team is coming off a win by 21 points or more like West Virginia is, and they're facing an opponent, like Iowa State is, and they're facing an opponent like West Virginia that led by 24 points or more. In their previous game, West Virginia led that Oklahoma State game 31-7 at the half, 31-9 to the under since 2015, 77.5%. That's 31-9 to the under in the first half. So I made that bet just a little bit ago. Iowa State, West Virginia under the first half total of somewhere around 26.5.
All right, Ross Benjamin giving out freebies. He's been crushing college football here on WagerTalk.com. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us here on Last Call every single Saturday. We are here for you. We will be back tomorrow with our good friend, Gianni the Greek. Of course.
One final note, Kelly.
Oh, go ahead.
One final note. If folks, 4% top play today, Kentucky and Vanderbilt. My college football 4% top plays have gone 10-0 with the last 11. That game goes at 7:45 tonight, only $25. What are you waiting for?
I love it. I love it. I love it. That is awesome. We will be back tomorrow. Brian Power from Westgate, Brian Power from WagerTalk.com. A special guest from the Westgate Superbook. And of course, Gianni the Greek. All right, I'll tell you guys who the special guest is. John Murray is going to fill in for Chase Michelson since he has a new job until we get a new person to look behind the counter for us. So you guys are in for a real treat. We'll call it a Kelly and Murray extended edition. This has been Wager Talk's Last Call. Good luck with all your bets today.